Thank you so much for speaking with me. The character is very juicy, and there's a lot of things that we have to go through. But what I want to know right off the bat, what is going on with the relationship between Veronica and Brian?
I think Veronica Jin would like to know the same thing. I think she has questions as well. I mean, they, as you see in today's episode, 208, they get together physically,
Mhm.
but it's just sort of like a release. They're both overworked, stressed out. But I think that she really doesn't know about what's going on with them for sure. He's always hiding stuff. I think she's always suspecting. I mean, she's a great detective. And she knows that there's things that he is not telling her, even though he keeps saying that he's being transparent. I think there's a lot of trust issues there. But she, of course, would love to be able to trust him. But, Bryant's not a very trustworthy kind of guy.
So, one of the things that I wondered though, we know that the biggest hurdle between trying to get through to him is basically opening up and communication. By any chance, is there a small way that she is using this as a tactic for him to open up and maybe trust her?
Perhaps, I wouldn't put it past Jin to use that as a tactic, to use sex or whatever, a relationship as a tactic. But I feel like, he's such a hard nut to crack.
Mhm.
That I feel like she is just as confused as the audience is. I think that he is not letting on to what's really going on behind the scenes, even though she is all in. She has even invested and become part of this whole scheme of his, trying to help cover up for the missing drugs and things like that. I mean, I think she's showing that she is all in this partnership by getting together as well. But whether he is all in is always going to be a question to her.
Kind of speaking on that, there is that moral gray line that she did cross in terms of give the drugs with B. Mickey and then trying to replace up the pills.
Yes.
Does she is she okay with that?
I think that Jin has been able to justify it
Mhm.
because it's helping get BMF in the end. I think that is the main goal, right? Is to catch the bad guys, whatever the cost. And every once in a while, you have to cross that line in order to get the job done. And I think that she can justify it in her head in that way. But whether she's done this before, I don't think so. I think this is a first for her. Like, she's not the kind of person who would cross that line easily, but she sees that this will, the means justifies the ends.
Would you say that she is a different person in episode 3 as opposed to episode 8? Because in episode 3, each from not only being arrested but technically bleeding out.
Yes, I think that, Jin is sort of the moral compass of the show, right? She is, even though she is definitely wanting to catch the bad guys, she still sees Meech as a human being, right? He's young. He's only in his 20s. He's just a kid, and he is caught up in a bad situation. But I think that she is the one who sort of helps bring Bryant back and doesn't let him get away with crossing that line. I mean, even though, there's some things that she'll do, but when it comes to taking a life like that, I don't know that Jin is cool with that. We've all have to define what our moral values are, right? There's always like a little gray area. There's always like things that we might do if this were the case, you know, in different, you know, situations. And Jin is constantly being tested that way. Her moral compass is constantly being tested.
We got to see some of the scars from the self-inflicted harm that she's doing. I know previously, I think around episode 3 or 4, we really got into the backstory of that. Is she continuing, especially now that she's going in this gray area?
I think this is something, you know, the scarring, the self-harm is something that she has to live with. I don't think that there is one thing that will happen that will suddenly make her, you know, stop doing this. I think that it's a lifetime of work. It's like, you know, AA, right? It's like,
Right.
it's something that you constantly have to battle. And something like this, it's so deep. It goes so far back into her history that that I think it's going to take a lot for her to stop harming herself.
Would you say that she is slightly hypocritical in terms of she's self-harming, she's not communicating what's really going on in her life, yet she wants the same from Detective Bryant?
I think in a way, yes. However, she does open up about her past,
Mm.
and you understand why she does what she does, you know, losing her sister and not being able to be there and save her sister, I think causes her to want to save the world, right? The rest of the community. When she is confronted with these, you know, these problems, these battles, you know, it causes it just puts her back in that situation again. And self-harm is one of the ways that she finds relief in a strange way. It was such an interesting thing for me to research, you know, to get into that headspace. I have to admit, I had a really difficult time researching that. I had to talk to friends who were psychiatrists. I had to, you know, read a lot. There were no videos of people in the action because it's such a private thing, right? It's not something that people are going to post on social media or, you know, put on YouTube or whatever. So there was, it was a very difficult thing to be able to research, but it was fascinating, and getting into that headspace was really difficult for me because it's hard to understand why anybody would do that to themselves, you know. But yeah, it's deep. It's really deep, and it's so much more common than we even realize these days, especially.
And so I was wondering also, from now at episode 8, she originally wanted to be a police officer. The whole American dream is being an immigrant. What does that American dream look like now? Is it vastly different than when she started out?
I think so. I think, you know, everybody's got this idea of, you know, the American dream and being success. I think to Jin, her dream is justice, right? She wants justice for everyone, for not just her community, who is not seen and not respected enough. You know, she loses her sister because she's beaten to death and nobody comes forward, right? She's doing this for the community that isn't heard or talked about or respected. But she's also doing it for even, you know, people like Meech, who, you know, is left to bleed out. She just wants justice for everyone in every situation, and that's her American dream.
What was really interesting with this episode, we had the arrest of K9. And so we also had the reintroduction of Leslie Jones' character. She was very afraid of basically everyone coming in and taking credit for all the work that she did. Will there be more of them working together going forward? Or can you tease any of that?
I cannot tease any of
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Uh, but yeah, no, the arrest of K9 was huge, right? Because he's like, um, gosh, I can't even remember exactly because I haven't seen 208 and we shot it like a year ago. But yeah, there's so much going on in the writing. So it's so deep. I can't even.
What can you say? There is a new commander. We know that the previous one left, was reassigned. Will that change the dynamic of how Detective Jin and Bryant do their dirty work?
I think they have to be, very careful no matter who is in command, right? They know that they are being watched heavily and they know that they are, suspect. And so they have to be very careful about how they move. I think that as they get closer though to BMF, the challenge of crossing that line is so much harder to resist, you know. So oh gosh, there's going to be such amazing surprises coming up in the finale. I cannot wait for people to see the finale. I have to say, when I came back to Atlanta to shoot season 3, I went back to reading the finale of season 2 just to sort of, get rolling with it again, get it fresh in my mind again. And the same feels that I had in when we read it the first time came back. It's such an amazing, amazing finale. The writing on this show is impeccable. I'm so proud to be part of this project.
Okay, now we know B. Mickey, he's out for revenge. We did see him trying to retrieve the gun and locking the son in the closet.
Yeah.
By not having all of the information, because he's still hiding everything, can you say whether Detective Jin will start acting more independently?
I think she kind of always has to act sort of independently because Bryant doesn't share a lot with her, right? Even though he keeps saying he's being transparent, she keeps finding out that he's not. He has got so many skeletons, so much to hide. And I think that even after their intimacy, I think she still has trust issues, and rightfully so. She's finding out all this stuff going on. And yeah, and things just keep piling up. It, it- I can't wait until you guys see the rest.
Can you say whether or not it becomes more personal because of what happened with the son?
Yes, I think she becomes attracted to Bryant after meeting the son and seeing this softer side to him, being, the father, and seeing this relationship and seeing what a sweet, sweet boy Kevin is. I think, that really softens her and makes her see him more as a human being than just a partner and a cop. And so, that of course has to affect her and her relationship with him.
How that affects her as a cop and doing her job because of that relationship?
From what I understand, a lot of times cops, when they work together, they end up spending a lot of their free time together as well, barbecues, vacations, their lives become really entwined. And I think that you can't help yourself. And especially female cops, right? Female cops will almost always get involved with other cops because you know, it's a crazy life. I don't think anybody who is not involved in law enforcement would understand or be able to pair up with a female cop. You know, it's a really different and difficult life. But yeah, I think that she is it's it I think she, as much as she is careful, will not be able to help herself, but you know, feel something and get involved in some way. It's just the nature of who we are as human beings.
So, it was episode 7. There was a voiceover that stated that cops are basically the same as drug dealers, except for one carries a license and the other one doesn't. What would be Detective Jin's thoughts on that?
You know, I think Detective Jin is, you know, she's sort of the moral compass, right? For Bryant. She's the one who steps in when he's getting too far. She is, you know, she questions his authority and his motives. You know, I think she's really battling her own moral compass, you know, trying to get the job done, be a great partner, but yet not cross that line. I think it's such a hard job for cops, even, you know, in real life, you know, to be able to get this job done without you know, and still stay in these, within the lines, within the parameters. That's why you have so many cops getting in so much trouble these days.
With the K9 now being arrested in a pending all-out war possibility, does
Mm.
she feel, or will you say in the future, she could feel that this job, what she's doing, is too big for her? Can she truly end crime or curb it?
I think that, you know, you have to, if you're a cop and you're in this sort of scene where you are fighting, you know, drug dealers, you know that you can only make small victories, right? You're never going to end, you know, this drug world and you know, be able to stop all of this going on. It's the small victories, I think, that you have to be able to hang your hat on. And so I think she's realistic in knowing that that, you know, taking down BMF is, you know, it's piece by piece, right? It's eating away a little bit at the foundation, you know, and even taking down BMF altogether will only just be one little part of this entire war on drugs, right? That they were going through in the 80s, this, you know, so-called war on drugs. But I think that, you know, you have to take pride and just be happy with all the little victories, right? Like catching K9 and, you know, finding the drugs in the car, you know, all these little things have to keep you as a cop driven to keep doing what you're doing.
Gone home with Detective Jin. We haven't gone home with her. I was wondering, what would you think her parents thinks of what she's doing right now, where she's at in her career and how she's tackling these situations?
I am sure that as immigrant parents, they would have loved for her to be a lawyer or a doctor or one of those things. Like, why law enforcement, right? You
Right.
get paid, you know, nothing, and you know, the rewards are, it seems, few, right? However, I think that you know, she's not doing it for the money. She is not doing it, you know, to satisfy her parents. She's doing it because of this inner need you know, having lost her sister and seeing that nobody was taking care of her community. No one was looking after, you know, the Asians in Detroit in the 80s. And it was a very difficult time for Asian people in Detroit in the 80s, you know, with the Japanese automotive industry and all the racism that was going on, you know, with the murder of Vincent Chin and things like that. I think that's what drives her, not so much the approval of her immigrant parents, but, you know, keeping her community safe, you know, and I think that that's, you know, more important to Jin than her parents' approval.
Lastly, what are her true thoughts about Lamar? She had him in custody. There was the metaphor of Batman versus Joker. One needs the other one to survive. Do you feel that that was true? And do you think he savable?
I think she knows how unstable he is. I think it's pretty obvious to anyone who watches oh my God, I love that character. He is he's my favorite character. Absolutely. I mean, so much craziness going on over there. But you know, I think she realizes that she can use him as a pawn to bring in Meech and the bad guys. You know, I think she really knows that there's something deep going on over there between Meech and Lamar. And so she tries to use him to pit them against one another in hopes, you know, of bringing Meech in. Yeah, she's willing to do whatever it takes to get to Lamar with, well, you know, within her moral compass, within her moral standards.
Well, thank you so much. One quick thing. Can you tease whether or not Detective Jin is happy in season 3? Is there a moment of happiness for her?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I mean, what is happiness, right? Everybody has fleeting moments. But you know, I think underlying she's her life is so tragic. You know, she suffers so greatly underneath all of that. I don't know that Jin will ever find true happiness. Yeah, we're all on that quest.
Right. Thank you so much for speaking to me. I love your portrayal. I love the show. I love you and everything.
Thank you. Thanks for all these great questions. This was so fun. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.